What's up guys, name is Ray and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. Today we are going over the developers discussion which just released a couple of hours ago, and they are talking about some problems that players have in the game experiencing or referring to the user interface and of course the Resin system. So yeah, now let's go into the first question. I never have enough original Resin, which makes it difficult to complete various daily tasks and the weekly battle pass missions. And the answer to that is in version 1.1, which will be the next big update, we have decreased the original Resin requirements and battle pass weekly missions from 1600 to 1200. So if you guys know, for the battle pass, doesn't matter if you're free to play or pay to win, you need to use 1600 resin, which is not doable without refilling the resin. So they decrease it to 1200, which is very huge for that. Because later in the game, you will come to a point where you cannot refill with fragile resin that frequently. The next big thing, which is very huge, is that travelers will be able to store up a maximum of 160 original resin. So they decrease the resin that you need to do the missions for a amount of 400 resin, and then they increase your daily or your maximum resin by 40. So resin is actually these half moons at the top right corner of your map, and yeah, they increase it to 160 from 120. My opinion to that is it doesn't affect it too much, because usually if you play the game like very frequently, your resin is never really full. So increasing it from 120 to 160 doesn't make too much difference for me, except for the fact that you can like log in less frequently. So if you're like a player that just wants to log in once a day, I think that's very good, because if you all have if you're playing now, you have to log into the game at least twice a day to use your resin optimal, your 120. And yeah, this makes it a bit easier for you to just log in once if you don't have too much time. Hopefully they give out more fragile resin. I think this is like the best way. So the one thing would be they take out the resin system, but I don't think that this would be a very good solution, since since it is still a gacha game and they don't want you to play this every day because everyone has a life. So that's the reason why I would say that giving out fragile resin as much as like they do in Dragon Ball Legends with energy refill tickets, or as they do with stamina pots in 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, would be the best solution. So you can, like, if you have time, you can use as much fragile resins as you want, and if you don't have time, you still have them up to use them later on. Question number 2, I want to change the key bindings controller setup. So I don't want to go over that too specifically, because this doesn't take part before or when patch 1.1 arrives. This will be in a later update, as they state here, which will become available to players in a later version. So that's also actually just for specific key bindings, which for me I didn't find too important for now. But yeah, also this will take quite a while to arrive on the global version. Number 3 question. I wish there were more ways to filter artifacts. Yeah, that is something that is huge for the user interface experience. In version 1.1, we have added new filters to artifacts based on their basic attributes. Now travelers will be able to easily filter artifact by attributes. So actually, it is very annoying to search for your right artifacts, equip them through your characters. And yeah, they want to fix that to filter for specific artifacts if you're looking for stats that you like to try out on your character. So at least from my experience or from my view, I do think that I have to swap artifacts quite a lot, because I really like to try out different sets based on recommendations, based on some things that I want to test out myself. And yeah, that's like a good way for that. Traversing the game world is time consuming. I want to be able to set my own teleport waypoints for areas that I frequently visit. So the meaning of that is that there are 2 less teleporters on the map, and there will be an item. So let's look at the answer. We have developed an item that provides this kind of function, which will be available for free in a new system. Travelers can look out for this in version 1.1. Now they want to provide the item that actually does the same as the teleporters. So this is just my personal opinion to that. So I don't really need this. The problem is, of course, if you want to fight like a specific boss, you have to teleport to the boss or in the near teleporter, and then you still have to go a long way to fight that boss. And yeah, that can be quite annoying, but I don't think that this is a problem. What I do think is that they should give out like something different. I do think like a horse, like they do in Zelda Breath of the Wild, where you can tame horses. And in this game, there are a lot of opportunities to give you like a pet, something like a horse, a tiger, a lion, I don't know, any kind of animal is possible for that, where you can just ride through the map for a certain amount of time. I just want to say for a certain amount of time, because then stamina wouldn't make too much sense anymore, except for combat system. And yeah, this would be my idea for the solution. Number 5, it's annoying to have to select equipped artifacts and weapons to find out which characters has them equipped. That's a bit similar to number 3, but it is referring to the characters directly. So if you go over a character, they only show the main stats, so the attribute stats like attack, HP, defense, and which artifact sets they have, but they don't show you the specific sets of the artifacts, except if you go on artifact and click through every single artifact. And I also find this very annoying, so very good user interface change. The next thing is something more specifically referring to the shield sustains. So I just want to go through this because this is the question to answer with an example. So don't want to go too deep into that, and then that's it for the developers discussion. So question is, how is damage calculated when I have more than one shield, and which shield sustains damage first? Answer to that is, in practice, when a character is hit, the damage sustained will affect every active shield simultaneously. After this damage is calculated, if the character still has shields remaining, the character themselves will not take damage. So now they explain this in this example. Let's say you are using the character Beta with both her Tight Collar active. Tight Collar is her E ability, so the elemental skill at 100, and Noelle's Breastplate. Noelle's Breastplate is also her E, also her elemental skill at 20. Now, if a monster deals 10 damage to Beidou, Tight Collar now has 90 remaining, whilst Breastplate has 10 remaining. Beidou does not take damage. Alternatively, if a monster deals 50 damage to Beidou, Tight Collar now has 50 remaining, whereas Breastplate has been exhausted and destroyed. Beidou does not take damage. If a monster deals 110 damage to Beidou, both shields are exhausted and destroyed, whilst Beidou takes excess 10 damage. So yeah, they actually explain like the counter mechanic in the Tight Collar and the shield effect in the Breastplate. Now please note, the above example does not take into account damage reductions or absorption effect enhancements of any kind. So what's the thinking behind this? Let's invite one of our developers to give us the lowdown on the thought process behind shield design. Now, using elemental interactions during combat is Genshin Impact's fundamental combat strategy. Building on this aspect of gameplay is the tactic of using elemental shields to absorb damage of the same element. The mechanic we designed, where this character's defensive shields have 250% absorption effectiveness against elemental damage of the same type, is likewise based on the aforementioned consideration. In one respect, our decision not to employ stackable shields in our design was to avoid the need for players to acquire many shield type characters. This would also have a negative effect on the diverse party tactics that we were hoping to see. Of course, retaining one or two types of elemental shields is also a perfectly valid strategy against complex elemental damage, and this can also be achieved rather easily through the crystallized reaction. Well, that marks the end of this developers discussion. Now to get back to working on those updates. I think the main reason why they explain this is, on the one hand, that there are not too much people that use like these mechanics in the game. So the main thing that I can see is you usually use a character that does a lot of elemental damage or a lot of normal attack damage, which or like for the Claymore users, Changyeon, Razor, and Diluc. I think these are like the 3 most Claymore users in the game. Beetle is a bit more or less used by the players in general, but it is used by a lot of content creators to show how strong the character actually is. And Noelle, I feel like, is like the worst or the most less used character in the game, but if you can give her like a certain amount of constellations, dupes, you can make her, of course, at least usable. And then you can try to utilize this mechanic referring to her breastplate and referring to the type color of Beidou. Yeah, that's it for the developers discussion and for today's Genshin Impact video. And if you guys enjoy, subscribe to my channel for even more Genshin Impact videos. And I see you guys next time. If you guys want to see more Genshin Impact content, videos should pop up on the screen right now. Make sure to check them out, and I thank you for your support.